Hello, BookTube. A bit earlier, I did a video about our third week of Sherlocktober. We're reading in October some classic short stories on one classic novel from the Sherlock Holmes canon by Arthur Conan Doyle. We just finished up The Hound of the Baskervilles, and next week we'll be reading, to finish up our Sherlocktober for 2018, we'll be reading 6 stories from The Return of Sherlock Holmes, in which our hero returns from the dead. And they're wonderful short stories, but they don't require much reading time. And I'm not talking about them in this video. In this video, I'm warning you, I'm reminding you that we have a read-along coming for November. And it's Moby Dick. It's a big one. It's not 6 short stories. It's Moby Dick. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about that, just to make sure you get your feet underneath you, shipmates, because this is bearing down on you. And since in October, for Sherlocktober, all you have to read is 6 short stories that are all engaging, might be time to do a little prep work for Moby Dick, our enormous read-along for November. So what we're going to do, I want to make sure that you know, it doesn't matter what edition you have, doesn't matter if you have a paperback or hardcover, it doesn't matter anything like that. But what we're going to do for the first weekend in November is the first 30 chapters of Moby Dick, all the way to the chapter called The Pipe. So that's what we're going to do for the first weekend. It's a fairly light week of reading. We're going to do the first 30 chapters of Moby Dick, all the way to The Pipe. So it doesn't matter, you know, paperback, hardcover, doesn't matter anything like that. But one thing that I insist on here is that you have an unabridged edition. We are going to read the whole of Moby Dick. We are not going to skip around. I have many times assigned this book. I've many times offered to help people work their way through it. And there are some obvious cuts that you can make. If you want to give somebody a shorter version of this novel that still conveys a lot of its power, you can do that. There are a lot of chapters that can be simply excised from the whole without changing the arc of the story. But I believe that they do change the arc of the book. And so we're not going to do that. What we're going to do for November is the whole of Moby Dick. So the only part of this book that I am going to urge you to skip is the very beginning, etymology and extracts. If you have an unabridged Moby Dick, that will be at the very beginning of your book, and it's not important to read. It doesn't affect the book at all. It doesn't affect the story at all. It doesn't affect anything. But a lot of people who come to Moby Dick for the first time don't realize that and think, well, if these things are at the very beginning, then of course I have to read them. You don't. And you especially don't, because they are not only boring, they are off-puttingly boring. They are meant for you to read last, not first. So that's the one. I still want you to have an unabridged edition, but that is the one skip that I am authorizing here, is that you can skip etymology and extracts and move straight on to the chapter called Loomings. So I just wanted to put this on your radar, even though radar didn't exist in the days of the Pequod. I wanted to put this on your radar because we're going to do this. This is going to be our last read-along of 2018, and we're going to take only a month to do it, and we're going to have a lot of fun. This is an extremely enjoyable novel. No matter how weird it is, it's extremely enjoyable, and you're going to enjoy yourself, by gum. I will help you. But a little bit of preparation is probably a good idea. It's not only long, but daunting. So, I wanted to make this video just to lay the groundwork, even though we're still in the middle of a readathon. We're a read-along. We're doing Sherlocktober. But in November, we're going to start Moby Dick, the first 30 chapters. So I just thought I'd make this video and point that out to you, that although your reading for this week is fairly light, you might want to think ahead and get some work done on the first 30 chapters of Moby Dick. But anyway, we'll be talking plenty more about Moby Dick at the end of next week, when I give you a few pep talks to make sure you don't run away screaming into the hills. But in the meantime, I will wrap this up, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.